The President, please be seated. The court is now in session. During today's sessions, we continue hearing the testimonies of Mr. Sao Sarun. Questions remain to be put by counsels for the civil party who have been authorized to put questions to the witness. Before we proceed to hand over to counsels for the civil party, Trial Chamber Greffier is now instructed to report on the presence of parties to the proceedings today, including the reserved witness, if available. Greffier. Good morning, Mr. President. All parties to the proceeding are present, except Mr. Ieng Sari, who is in the holding cell. Mr. Ieng Sari has waived his right to be present directly in the courtroom. The waiver has already been given to the greffier. Reserve witness TCW 488 is present and has taken an oath. The witness took an oath on the 9th of June 2012 and indicated that the witness has no relationship or any connection to any parties to the proceeding, including the accused persons. The President, thank you. The Chamber has received the waiver of Mr. Ieng Sari, in which Mr. Ieng Sari has waived his right to be present in the courtroom and asked that he be allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell for the full day due to his health concern. He indicates that he cannot remain seated for longer period of time in the courtroom. The request is also supported by the recommendation by the doctor, who indicates that the accused person cannot take part in the proceedings in the courtroom, but still can observe the proceedings from his holding cell. The Chamber notes that Mr. Ieng Sari has already waived his right to be present directly in the courtroom. He asks that he be allowed to observe the proceedings from the holding cell through video link. The Chamber therefore grants the request. Mr. Ieng Sari is now allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell, which is downstairs, and he can join the proceedings through this video link for the whole day. AV booth officers are now instructed to ensure that the AV device are linked to the holding cell so that he can observe the proceedings from there. Next, we would like to proceed to counsel for the civil parties, in particular counsels who have been authorized to put questions to this witness. You may now proceed. Counsel Tisrina. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, Mr. Sarun. Yesterday, I put a question relating to the time when you became the secretary of Sector 105. But another question will be focusing on the time when Talang was in power. Yesterday you said the sector office was K17. What was the function of this office? Response. The sector office is not something I know much about, because I was at the district and I had no idea what the office was doing. Question. Were you ever aware of how many officers there were in the sector when Talang was the head? Response. So far as I know, there were 3 or 4 officers, including the one for commerce. Question. Could you name the 4 officers to the court? Response. I can do that. First, it K17. Second, K11. Third, K16. And number 4 is the commerce office. I don't know the code name for that office. Question. Were you aware of the composition of people in the leadership of those officers? Response. I don't know. I worked at the district level and I don't know about that. Question. What about the management of the officers? How many people or how many members each office had? Response. I don't know. Question. With regard to each district, so far you testified before the court that there were districts. Could you tell us whether in each district there would be offices for each respective section or not? Response. No, there were no other offices other than an office at the district and another office at the commune. Question. Were you ever aware of a Phnom Kraul security center? Response. I am aware of the name, but I never been there. Question. Do you know when Phnom Kraul Security Office was established? Response: I don't remember. Question: Do you know the purpose of the establishment of Phnom Kral Security Office? Response: No, I don't know. Again, I worked at the district. I had nothing to know about the business of the sector level. Question: How far is the Phnom Kral Security Office from the sector office or from K17? Response: The office was not far from that office. It was about 100 meters apart. Question: How was that security office like? Was it surrounded by a wall, a fence, or else? Question: I have no idea about this because I indicated I have never been there. Question: Have you ever heard whether people were detained at the office? Response: No. I worked at the district office and I have never been to that location. Question: Since you said you don't know or have never been there, I would like to refer to a document in which you gave statement before the co-investigating judges to refresh your memory. Document E3/383 or D201/5. With Mr. President's leave, I would like the document to be read to the witness to refresh his memory. The President: You may proceed. You may ask your assistant to ensure that the document be put up on the screens so that the parties and the public can also see them. Counsel Tisrina: Mr. President, since we have very limited time, may we just read out the portion to the witness without having them put up on the screen, please, just to refresh his memory. The President: You may proceed, but again, make sure that ERN of the document is also spelled out. Counsel: In Khmer, ERN 00345915. In English, 003526. French, ERN 00361765. At that time, you were asked, did you ever send people to any security office within the sector? And you said, when I was on the sector committee, there were only releases. Do you still stand by your statement? Response: Yes, I do. There was no arrest, but releases. Question: At that time you were asked about security offices. So in which particular security office you refer to when you talked about releases? Response: I was referring to that particular security office in that sector only. Question: what is the name of that security office? Can you tell the court? Response: I don't remember. I don't know. I just heard that it was called Sector Security Office. That's all. Question: with regard to the security office of the sector you are referring to, where is it? Response: it's located near the sector's office. And as I indicated, the offices were just about 100 meters apart from one another. Question: who was overseeing that office? Response: it was superior who was in charge. Question: with regard to the security office, the office you said was about 100 meters away from one another. Was it the same office as Phnom Kraul Security Office? Response: I am not sure I got your question. Please have it stated again. Question: you said earlier on that Phnom Kraul Security Office was about 100 meters from the office of the sector. And later on I asked whether there were any other offices, and you said yes, there were a security office for the sector, and you said you did not know the name of that office. Now my question is, were the security office of the sector and Phnom Kraul security office are the same? Just one name. Response: no, these are the two offices. Question: do you still remember that you released people from the sector security office? How many people did you release? Response: quite a number of people, and I think it was a long time ago. My memory doesn't serve me very well now. Question: how often did you release them? Response: on 2 occasions. Question: I would like now to proceed to another question on the same document under the same ERN numbers. The question you were asked was that did you consult with the center before releasing prisoners? And you said, no, I did not. That was my authority. Question: Why did you dare to release those senior prisoners? Response: the reason I dare release these people because after some interrogations I could learn that there was no substantial wrongdoings or mistakes that these people committed. They could have some minor disputes among themselves, so that's the reason I could release them. Question: when releasing these prisoners, did you do that when you received or upon receiving the new policy rendered by the party as cited by the prosecutor to you yesterday? Is that correct to say so? Response: yes, it is correct. I did that upon receiving the instruction from the party and after learning that these people did not commit any serious wrongdoings. Question: thank you. I would like to put another question to you. On the 6th of June 2012, you stated with response to the question by the prosecutor that there was a recorrection center in the sector. Are you referring to the same security office when talking about recorrection center? Response: this office had the same name. Either it is a recorrection center or security office. They are all the same. Question: may I seek a clarification on this? Are these offices actually the same, the recorrection and the security office? Response: as I indicated, they are the same office. Question: thank you. Do you know what kind of people were being detained at this recorrection center? Response: as indicated already, some people who had some fighting among themselves, for example, like the married couples who had some arguments and who were arrested and detained, and they would be questioned, and these people were detained because of these small things. So then these are the kinds of people detained at the center.
Question: were those who betrayed the revolution brought to those offices? Response: I never heard of that. I never heard of those who betrayed the revolution. Question: how about during the times that Lang was in charge? I mean, was anyone accused of betraying the party or the revolution? If so, what was the procedure to deal with such a person? Response: I do not know about that, especially during his control. I did not know about his work. Question: did you ever hear people say about people who betrayed the revolution in your sector? Response: no, I did not. Question. When you went to Phnom Penh to attend meeting, were you explained about those who betrayed the revolution? That is, how to deal with those who betrayed the revolution. Will you explain that? Response. No, I did not hear that. Question. Can you clarify the way Lang controlled his office? Can you tell the court about the way he managed his office? Response. I do not know about how he controlled his office or how he works. I only knew about the work in the districts. Question. What was the relationship between Lang and the district committee? For example, you at that time was the secretary of the district. What was your relationship with him and his relationship with other district secretaries? For example, when it comes to meetings or discussions about any particular issues. Response. About our relationship, we only come to meet when we were called to attend meetings. Question. When you went to the meetings, were issues within the sector discussed? Response. During the meeting, various matters, for example, issues dealing with the right field, dam building, were discussed. Question. Regarding building the dam, I would like to know how many people in that sector were there who went to work on the dams. Response. There were many of them, but I cannot tell you exactly as to how many there were. Probably there were about 100 or 200 people, but I am only estimating. Question. Were only the local people required? Were only the people in that particular district required to build dams, or people from all over the sector were required to do that work as well? Response. People would build dams in their respective districts. Question. How was the work like? Response. People carried unearthed soils. Question. How many hours did people have to work each day? Response. They first ate at 6 o'clock and they began working at 7 o'clock. And they would take rest at 10:30. Question. I would like to ask you more about rice farming. Regarding the productions from rice farming, as you indicated last week, you said that the productions was to support the local people. I just wanted to know whether the products were ever used to support the people. Response. Rice production was also distributed to people. People were given 30 buckets of rice per year. The President interrupts. Council, please pay attention to your question. Make sure that your question will not move beyond the facts charged against the accused persons. Regarding the facts in Office 105, we are dealing with only the fact at Phnom Kraul office. So, can you be reminded to confine your questions within the facts set out? Those facts set out within the segment case 002, and make sure that you will not move beyond those confines. Please be reminded that we are only dealing with Phnom Kraul Security Center here. Council, thank you, Mr. President, for your reminder. Question. I would like to ask you about disappearance. Last week, you said in response to the co-prosecutors that I would like to rephrase my question. About the meeting. When you attended each meeting at the sector level, did you ever see or experience any occasion where a meeting attendant made any complaints and afterward that person disappeared? Response. Can I have the question again? I'm not clear with it. Question. When Lang was in charge, you attended meetings several times. My question is, did you ever notice that a member of the meeting made a particular complaint and afterward that member disappeared? Response. No, I don't think so. No one disappeared. Question. did Mr. Lang report it to? Response: I do not know about that because he was the sector secretary. It was beyond my knowledge as to how he or to whom he reported his work. Counsel: in order to refresh your memory, Mr. President, I would like to seek your leave to refer to document E3/404. If I may, Mr. President. The President, you may proceed. Court officer is instructed to display this document onto the screen as well. Counsel, may I also request, Mr. President, that I read the relevant part to the witness to save time? President: yes, you may proceed. I said once. The document E3/404, year ending Khmer 0398483, in English 00403027, French 00484201. The question asked: that to whom did Talang report to? And you said he reported only to Pol Pot. Do you still stand by your answer? Response: I once indicated this before the investigating judge. Question: when you was appointed to be in charge in replacement of Talang, did you use your own method as to how you were to report to the superior? Response: can I have the question again? Can you be slower? Counsel: my question is, when you was in charge as the sector secretary of Sector 105, when you reported to Pol Pot, did you follow the method used by Talang, or you used your own? Response: after I was in charge of the office of the sector, I reported to Pol Pot because I was instructed to report to him. My question concerns the authorities of Communist Party of Cambodia between 1975 and 1979. What was the authority of the party like? The response: I do not know about the scope of the authority of the party. Question: when you attended meetings in Phnom Penh during Democratic Cambodia period, did you know as to who were important figures within the party? Response: I do not know who had more important roles than who. Question: about the communication between senior leaders or the central committee. I would like to know which member of Sector 105 had the authority to communicate with Central Office. Response: I do not understand your question. Can I have it again? I would like to rephrase my question. My question is, which member of the sector committee in Mandalkiri was communicated directly by the central committee? Response: I don't think there was one. Only the chief of the sector had the communication. Question: thank you. Concerning the authority to decide to remove people either from the regiment or battalions, who had such authority to do so? Response: my answer is that I do not know. I do not know who had the authority to appoint or to remove. May be those from the superiors. Question: when you said the superiors or people from the upper level, who were you referring to? Response: I was referring to Pol Pot because he was in charge the whole country. Question: my next question deals with forced marriage. During the control of Talang, did you know anything about the marriage within the cooperatives? The President: the witness does not have to answer this question. It is repetitive. The co-prosecutors have already asked about this. Counsel: Mr. President, last time a witness said about or talked about the marriage during the time that he was in charge, but my question deals with the times that Talang was in charge, and I will have a number of other following up questions which are different from those by the prosecutors. If I may, Mr. President, the President, you are not allowed to do so. Counsel, I will now begin with other questions then. On the 6th of June 2012, last week, you said to the prosecutors that if there was a request from an individual or the chief of a group, when there was a request from an individual, the group chief shall ask for the consent from that other individual and report that to the superior. My question is, do you remember what if someone refused to get married? The president interrupt. Witness does not have to answer this question. This is a hypothetical question. You are not allowed to ask such a question in this court. Hypothetical questions are not allowed. Counsel is reminded to ask more specific question. Counsel. Was there anyone who refused to get married? And if so, what happens to that person? Witness. I already answered these questions to the investigating judges and the co-prosecutor. We did not have any rights to force them to get married. We had to ask for the consent from their parents. Question. I would like to move back to the structure of cooperatives. Last week, you told the co-prosecutors that at the cooperatives there was a committee, their respective committee in the cooperatives. Can you elaborate further regarding the composition of the committees? Response. As I told the prosecutors, question, were the committee members assigned with respective work to do? Response. They were assigned with different roles. Some were responsible for economics. Some were responsible for supplying food. So these are the distribution of the work. Question. Yesterday you said that there were also sector military. And my question, how many kinds of military forces were there in Sector 105? Response. There was only one kind. It was called the sector military. Question. Was there any central military positioning there? Response. Yes, there was a division of the military there. Question. What was the relationship between the sector military and the military from the Central Committee? Response: from my understanding, and the military from the Central Committee were not aware of the geographical location, and that was different for the sector military who lived there. They knew more about the geographical location. Response: rather question, how did they report their work? Did they report their works to the same target? Response: it's like what I told the prosecutors. I maintain my answers to the co-prosecutors. Question: did you ever hear of the word the chief of the division? If so, do we have other words such as the secretary of the division or the division committee? Response: as I said, they are the same. Question: what was the composition of each division? Response: to be frank, I do not understand that. I do not know about that. Question: from your experience living in that sector, I want to know how many military personnel were there in each division, and what was the structure like in each division. Can you tell that to the court? Response: I do not know about that, about the number of the personnel.
Council, Mr. President, I would like now to refer to document E3/367 again. The President, you may proceed, but please advise the Chamber on the identification of the document, the ERN, and your main purpose with reference to the document. Because if you keep asking the President to allow you to on just one point at a time, it would be difficult and really take so much time. Council, thank you, Mr. President. I'm referring to this document. This document is under ERN 00251440 in Khmer, 00278697 in English, and 00486013 in French. The President, you may proceed. Council, you stated with regard to the question concerning who else you knew, and you said that during the Congress, Pol Pot indicated or declared that civilian and military cadres should stop the killing and the arrests. unless a prior summon from the center's court was obtained. My question is, what happened that made Pol Pot declare such statement? Response. As I already stated before the co-prosecutors, I think the position is clear. Question. I think I need to repeat the question, and I'm afraid I didn't make myself clear. The question is, what had happened that led to the declaration by Pol Pot to ask military cadres to stop killing and arrests? Response. I don't know. I just heard that the announcement was made that there should never be more arrests or killing, and when people committed any wrongdoings, they shall not be killed or arrested. Instead, they should be educated. Question. What happened at other sector? Do you know? Response. No, I don't. Question. With regard to another question, what did you know about the military affairs and security management in that sector? You said the sector committee was the one who supervised the sector military chiefs. My question to you is, what is your understanding of sector committee? Response. I think I already made it clear. Question. Does sector committee refer to an individual or a group of people? I understand that the secretary of the sector would be an individual person, but when it comes to committee, was it only one person or a group of people? Response. When it comes to committee, it must comprise of at least 3 people, otherwise it could never be called committee. Question. Could you tell the court about the structure and the roles of the sector committee? Response. People were tasked with different duties and tasks. For example, some would be assigned with the task in commerce, military, and so on and so forth. Question. On the same document, and then did you indicate it before the co-prosecutor? I just need the clarification concerning your chit-chat with Mr. Kilsampon. You said you had a chit-chat with Mr. Kilsampon concerning commerce. Could you please be more precise? What exactly was he talking about when it comes to commerce? Response. Well, he was talking about economy, about growing vegetables, about production, about food ration, of the people, and that's all. Question: did he also talk to you about the 4-year plan of the CPK? Response: no, I didn't. Question: yesterday document D189.1 was presented to you by the prosecutor concerning the the party's line relating to the people who affiliated with the KGB and other agents. And yesterday you already indicated time and again on this, but my question today is, after being explained and instructed, you said you disseminated this information on one occasion to your local people. Now, after such dissemination of information to your local people, how was the information being implemented or taken care of? Response: I already talked about this to the prosecutor. The local people had to follow whatever they expected of. Question: was there anyone who refused to implement the instruction, and what happened to them? Response: nothing happened to them. Question: with regard to your statement before the co-investigating judges and the co-prosecutors relating to the meetings you were called to attend after the death of Mr. Lang, you said Pol Pot called you to take over from Mr. Lang. My question is, when you first came to the meeting at Pol Pot's workplace, were you ever told about each and individual person's roles and responsibility in the meeting by Pol Pot? Response: I talked to the co-prosecutors yesterday already about this, and it is clear. Question: did you observe the relationship between the individuals involved? I would like to rephrase it. You said that Nuon Chia, Son Sen, Ieng Sari, Khieu Sampon, and Ieng Tirut were present. So my question is, what was your impression concerning the relationship between each individual in the meeting? Response: I think I noted that only Pol Pot presented or was chairing the meeting, and the other people were simply listeners. Counsel, you may proceed, says the President.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief observation for the record. The witness never mentioned Mr. Kyo Sampan's name during that meeting, and I believe that this is an oversight on the part of Civil Party Council.
The President, Counsel for the Civil Parties, you may continue. Counsel Tisrina, I have a document to prove this, in particular with regard to the statement he made. I did not present the document when I put this question to the witness because I wish to save some time for my questions. However, if counsel insisted that I show the relevant portion where the name of Kyo Sampan mentioned, I would be very pleased to do so. The President, do you have any further questions to put to the witness? Counsel, last week you indicated before the co-investigating judges that people were called and disappeared, and others were scared and afraid. My question is, were you also afraid? Response: I was afraid. I couldn't help not being afraid because other people were being called and disappeared, and the very close person of mine in my family, my brother-in-law, was also called and disappeared. Counsel, thank you, Mr. Witness, for your time answering my questions. I would like to hand over now to my colleague to put further questions. The President, you may proceed, Counsel.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, fellow colleagues. Good morning to everyone. Mr. Witness, good morning. I only have a few follow-up questions for you with respect to very specific topics. I hope to be able to go through them rather expeditiously within the time allotted to me. My first question for you, Mr. Witness, is with respect to the transfer of people. Now, you answered in response to a question put by the co-prosecutor on the 6th of June that from where you were residing, you did not witness anyone who was transferred to other regions or who were transferred from other regions to be resettled where you were living. As a member of the sector committee or as a district secretary, did you ever hear about people who were being transferred from other regions to Sector 105?
Response: I have never heard or witnessed any people being transferred from other regions to Sector 105.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Mr. President, with your leave, I wish to make reference to document D22/2736. This is a statement by a civil party that figures in our list of documents. We placed it on the interface just a few days ago. I wish to quote a passage from this document, and I believe that it should serve to refresh the witness's memory. I simply want to read the passage, but if you wish, we can certainly have it projected on the screen. The French ERN is 00 811 449. In Khmer, it is 00 5791 59. Unfortunately, an English translation has not been made available. May I please read from this passage, and Mr. President, do you wish for the document to be displayed on the screen?
The President, you may proceed, but please make the brief summary of the portion you would like to refer to only. And that the document can now be put up on the screens.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would just point out that the civil party in question was 15 years of age in 1975. And with respect to the transfer of people, the civil party writes as follows. During the Democratic Kampuchea regime, I lived in Kampong Spur province. I was evacuated and I was sent to Mondulkiri province in the district of Ko Nek. 1 year later, I was moved once again, and I was transferred along the Khmer-Vietnam border. I was a direct first-hand witness of executions that were occurring at Kharaol Mountain. End of passage. Mr. Witness, does this refresh your memory with respect to the transfer of certain people?
But
Response: No, I don't know anything about this. And I never saw people being evacuated into the Mondulkiri location either.
Merci.
Thank you. Allow me to move on now to the topic of cooperatives and work sites. Now, on the 5th of June, in response to the National Co-Prosecutor's question, you said that there were sufficient material, sufficient medical equipment and medicine within your sector. You were a member of the sector committee and you were responsible for medical issues. Was there appropriate health care? Were there trained doctors? And hospitals in good working condition operating within your sector?
but
Response: As indicated, there were sufficient medicine. There were people who were skilled in treating malaria, and there were midwives who also were trained, and there were doctors who specialized in general disease, and even surgeons.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Mr. President, I wish to make reference to document D22/2760. This is another document that figures on our list and which is also on the interface. It is a civil party application. I wish to make reference to pages 6 and 7 of the French version. And in Khmer, the era ends are 0055 6228. Unfortunately, we do not have at our disposal the English translation. May I please quote an extract from this document?
The President, you may proceed.
Cette partie civile avait
The civil party was of 33 years of age during the time they lived in District 35, and the civil party writes as follows. In 1977, during the rainy season, my father was assigned to plant bamboo in the forest. He had to work from dawn to dusk. He worked without eating, and he had to travel long distances. He was deteriorating day after day up until he became very sick. His body was swelling. He was taken to a medical unit where there were no doctors to care for him, nor were there any pharmaceuticals. The Khmer Rouge said, "If you are sick, you have no right to eat." He was deprived of food until his death. End of quote. Mr. Witness, does this jog your memory of hospitals within your sector?
But
Response. No, I don't know anything about this. At that time, I was confined to my position at the district. On top of that, I had no knowledge of having heard people being treated like that or ever killed.
Je vous remercie.
With respect to the living conditions within the cooperatives, Mr. Witness, were pregnant women entitled to receive medical treatment because of their fragile condition? Were the elderly, who were also frail and fragile, entitled to receiving medical treatment while they were living in the cooperatives?
Response. I may respond to this. Pregnant women were not allowed to work hard, and after delivering their babies, a few months after that, they were also allowed to stay home and not to work hard.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to make reference to two documents. The first is D22/1175. This is a civil party statement. I would wish to quote a passage which is on pages 4 and 5. On Khmer E on pages 00521307. Do I have your authorization to do so, Mr. President?
The President, you may proceed.
The civil party was a 20-year-old woman in 1975. She writes as follows, and I quote, "In 1975, I was forced into marriage. Later on, I became pregnant with my first daughter. 1 week following delivery of my child, I was sent into the rice fields even though I was not ready to do so. End of quote. 4 lines later, she states, and I quote, I received a very small, insufficient food portion. We only received 1 can of rice for 4 people. I was malnourished and exhausted. Sometimes I fell asleep on the rice field embankments. A few lines later, on the 5th page of the French version, my mother was very elderly. She was sent to work until she perished. In fact, when she fell ill, it was impossible to receive permission to see her. End of quote. Mr. Witness, does this remind you of any scenes that you may have witnessed at the time?
Response: No. I don't know such a thing happened during 1975.
Je vous remercie. Je voudrais...
Thank you. Allow me to quote an additional passage from another document. It is D22/1433. This is another statement by civil party. The French passage is on page 7. In Khmer, it is on ERN page 005 to 8426. It carries on to the following page. May I have your leave, Mr. President, to quote from this document?
President, you may proceed.
Cette partie...
The Civil Party was a 16-year-old boy in 1975. He writes the following. With respect to my father, who was very elderly, he was asked to supply tapioca. He was then asked to go hunting. He also was malnourished. He worked until exhaustion. He never had any time to rest. He was exhausted to the point of becoming sick. At that point, I had requested for medicine from Shrey, the head of the commune. She said, "It is not worthwhile to treat the elderly. We should just let them die because they're young people who are capable of working." When I heard this, I collapsed in tears. I had pity for my father, somebody who was so dear and beloved to me, and yet who was being treated with such contempt. 5 days later, he unfortunately passed away because of the lack of medicines. Mr. Witness, does this remind you of anything that you may have seen or heard about?
I do not know about that. During the 1977, I was still in my hometown, so I do not know about that.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. And in cooperatives, Mr. Witness, were children entitled to any special protection or treatment since they were a particularly fragile and vulnerable segment of the population?
Some councillors in the room. The President, witness, please hold on. Just National Council for Mr. Nunchi, you may proceed. Good morning, Your Honours. Good morning, Mr. President. I would like to object to this line of questioning by Civil Parties Council. That this is a question and answer of another person, and this cannot be used to impeach this witness. So I would like to object this question. President, yes, Counsel Michael Canavas, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning to everyone in and around the courtroom. I hesitate to raise an objection at this point, although I did want to point out that these are unsworn statements. I assume the trial chamber is aware of that. This issue is before the trial chamber, and it has never been resolved as to whether these sort of statements can be used as evidence. We are unsure whether these witnesses will actually, whether the civil parties will appear to be questioned. We are concerned that now we're bringing in statements of unsworn statements of individuals who will never appear, and you may be tempted to give weight to this sort of evidence. Obviously, this is a technique to try to impeach the witness. We're entitled to confront these witnesses. They're not statements given to the investigative judges, and therefore they have no weight as far as we're concerned. Thank you.
President, thank you, Counsel. Yes, Civil Party Counsel, you may proceed.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. President. I understand the reaction of Defense Counsel in the face of such a situation, and I'm surprised to hear them say that we can only use documents from witnesses. I believe the prosecution has used testimonies from all sorts of persons, and the defense has done so as well. And even non-chairs counsel can use documents from other persons. These people, of course, lived in Sector 105 regarding the objection of my learned friend Canavas. Let me point out again that the chamber will assess the evidence and its probative value. I crave the court's indulgence because I forgot to mention that all statements I'm mentioning today are by civil parties. We did not propose that these persons be called to testify before this chamber. Let me add that their testimonies are also very important. They were provided sincerely, and they are as worthy of consideration as those of witnesses. And I'm using only statements that are relevant.
President. Counsel, you may be seated. Now that we have been seized with objections from Defense Counsel, and we to deal with this issue to be in line with the previous decisions of the Trias Chamber, so that we can set precedent for our future proceedings. The Chamber will decide on this matter in due course, and now we will have a short break. We will have a 20-minute break. The court officer is instructed to accommodate a witness and his duty counsel and return them before we resume. The court is adjourned.